If you have been following the latest spin-off in the Big Bang Theory universe, you probably agree that Stuart Fails to Save the Universe is unlike everything that Big Bang Theory, Young Sheldon, or Georgie and Mandy's first marriage stands for. It is surely darker, crazier, and also just 10 times more apathetic when it comes to killing off seasoned characters that make a guest appearance in the show. I mean, killing Raj right in the first episode was a very bold move, and somehow that worked in the show's favor. As the world building of Stuart Fails to Save the Universe gets weirder by each episode, I am low-key struggling to understand what the aim of the show really is. Are we going to keep jumping through the multiverse until Stuart decides he really cannot save the universe? Well, that is not a very glass-half-full kind of take on the matter. Anyway, in the previous episode, we saw that our universe-hopping quartet were stuck trying to survive a happy-go-fascist world controlled by an AI overlord. In fact, after a bit too many outbursts, Bert, Barry, and Stuart were caged inside a re-education facility that basically aimed to convert them into happy morons that fit into this idyllic alternate world. After going through a 30-month-long program conditioned them into staying happy, the trio ended up being kidnapped by Penny, who was apparently running a resistance group in this world and wanted to find out if these three could help save the world. Unfortunately, their meeting is derailed when drones break in and incapacitate the whole lot, leading Stuart, Denise from the AI-run universe, Bert, and Barry to use the quantum interference device to end up in a universe where magic is very much real. How do they fare in this new world? Without wasting another moment, let's discuss what happens in the third episode of Stuart Fails to Save the Universe. The episode picks up right where we had previously left off, with Bert being tied to a mast on top of a wooden pyre while being surrounded by an angry mob. Everyone in the mob was holding a flame stick and screaming for the scientist to be burnt, and Barry, being Barry, only quietly watched it all unfold before slowly slipping away to save his own life. As the episode begins, the mob sets the pyre on fire and Bert starts hyperventilating. He then strangely looks up in panic and calls for rain, only for it to actually rain on his command. As the rain extinguishes the fire, we find out that Bert is the only one in this universe who has received magical powers, and so he makes sure to use it to his advantage. Once he extinguishes the fire, the mob surrounds him and calls him a great sorcerer. They all get eager to understand how he commands the elements of the earth, and of course, Bert also has no clue about his newfound abilities, but he does flex them by making it rain on command for the second time. I mean, a geologist who has been ignored all his life now realized that he is a powerful sorcerer in this universe with an immediate legion of followers. Do you really think he would not enjoy the attention while it lasts? As Bert and his so-called acolytes sit down together to have a chat, he uses his powers to change a glass of Coke to Diet Coke and then again to Dr. Pepper before chilling it to his preferred temperature. As the women flock around him, Bert is clearly enjoying it, as we even see him conjure up a very adorable puppy with a wave of his hand. The geologist is clearly flourishing in this magic world, because when one of the girls enamored by him asks if he could use his magic in the bedroom, Bert proudly claims how he does not need it since he is a very good listener. Yeah, the ladies are really digging him at this point. Meanwhile, Stuart wants to pick up his relationship with Denise right where he had left it off with the previous version of Denise that he had met in his universe. He explains everything to her, how the multiverse fell apart after the quantum interference device malfunctioned, how he was still running the comic center in his world, and how a version of him from another world tasked him to find the way to fix things back exactly how they were. Of course, the Denise of the AI-run world was married to Gary for 6 years and was never allowed to even voice her disdain for their marriage. She was not even involved with Stuart to begin with, so she definitely needs some time to figure out where she stands when it comes to her feelings. Now, this Denise, if you remember, is a raging alcoholic because the happy juice was the only way for her to actually pretend to be happy and not get shocked to oblivion by the devices that the AI overlord had placed on the humans in her world. So, as she goes into a bar and starts downing drinks while ruminating about her feelings for Stuart to the barkeeper, everyone thinks This is a crazy drunk bullshitting about interdimensional travel through different universes. On the other hand, Kripke finds his way to Stuart's shop, which is no longer a comic book store, but rather a wizard's hub that stores all kinds of grimoires, magical trinkets, and accessories. We quickly get a glance of it when Stuart opens a very Necronomicon-looking book, and an evil spirit almost oozes out of its pages before he freaks out and shuts it. Even by the alteration in Dr. Strange's comics of this world, you can tell that in this world, science is considered to be evil, as magic reigns supreme. Before Stuart can gather any more information about this universe from his so-called magic store, Barry shows up and immediately tells him that they must leave this world immediately, as it is not safe for scientists. When Stuart asks him about Bert, Kripke naturally lies about how he had no clue what happened to him and that they all ended up in different places after being zapped into this universe. While Barry pushes Stuart to leave this world, the latter mentions how they must wait for Denise, who is currently drinking her woes away. Barry suggests that there are plenty of Denises to go around in the multiverse, so he could just get on with the next one, but apparently Stuart's mom also had a fixation on alcohol, and maybe that is why he likes the Denise of this world, believing that there is something here for them to work on. The show does not really dwell on the revelation of Stuart's mommy issues, and rather we flash back to Denise at the bar, who is now completely drunk out of her wits and is now telling the magic world's version of Gary about how they were happily married for 6 whole years, especially because they were not allowed to argue, as the AI cube floating in the sky would sense the change in their temperament and shock them back to obedience. There is a lot going on in this episode, but Denise trying to make sense of what she wants, especially now that she has the privilege of choice, is easily the realest part of it. Anyway, back at the store, Barry does not listen to Stuart and tries to get the quantum interference device up and running, only to realize that anything powered by the laws of science just does not work in this world, which means now they must find someone with magic to make this time-traveling device to work, especially if they want to get out of this universe. Stuart, with his usual sense of cynicism, mockingly calls out to Alexa to provide them a list of eligible sorcerers and wizards in the area, and to their surprise, a miniature green-colored sardonic demon named Alexa actually shows up with the leads to their inquiry. Of course, Alexa has many other calls to attend, and so he asks them to hurry up. The first shock in the episode arrives when the list shows a familiar name, who turns out to be none other than Bernadette Rosadinkowski. Apparently, she is a famous sorceress in this universe, and so Barry and Stuart go knocking at her door. We see Bernadette sitting in a mess as she is watching TV and chugging ice cream in her pajamas, which surely does not sound like the Bernadette we know. Anyway, after Stuart and Barry explain everything about their interdimensional adventures, Bernadette mentions how she could not help them start the device even if she wanted to, because her powers have been stripped by the Wizards Guild of America. As turns out, Bernadette claims that she used her powers while they were on strike for better dental and residuals for Eternal Spell. This was apparently ridiculous, as they were on strike for 6 months and basically had to settle for a handful of magic beans. Now, in case you have been living under a rock, the Wizards Guild of America actually is a nod to the WGA, or the Writers Guild of America. Apparently, Bernadette was expelled from the guild for using her powers during the strike after she brought back her neighbor's son's adorable rescue dog, Chocolate Chip, back to life after he was hit by several cars. While Kripke does not understand how this breaks the strike, Bernadette mentions how 90% of the Wizards Guild of America don't even work, and yet they get to vote, which means it's not exactly fair. But Barry and Stuart are clearly desperate, so they ask her to find a way to help them. So Bernadette comes up with an unusual solution and asks Stuart for a cup of his blood, as he is the closest thing she can find to an innocent. That blood will apparently help her reverse the spell that stripped her powers and help them start the device to get them back home. Of course, a naive Stuart readily agreed and served his blood to her in a cup. But as they walk back from her house, the duo discusses how it served them of no use, as it failed to restore her powers. Without any other solution at hand, Stuart again calls for Alexa, who arrives a little late this time. Turns out the demon was in the middle of taking a dump when he was summoned. I guess there really is no rest for the wicked. Anyway, Stuart asks the demon for Sheldon's whereabouts, only to find out that in a world without the presence of science, Sheldon Cooper has now joined the Broadway, which means he would be of no use to them. Who would have thought, huh? After the duo walk back to the store, they reconvene with Bert, who immediately bricks up the door when Barry sees him and tries to run away. He then turns Kripke into a penguin and threatens to turn him into a maggot next if he did not take accountability for leaving Bert while a mob was trying to burn him. Bert then explains his newfound magical abilities to Stuart and mentions how he has been thriving in this world, especially with such beautiful acolytes always following him around. But this is good news for the group because Bert being able to do magic meant that he could use his powers to get the quantum interference device running again. However, their conversation was interrupted by a blue-cloaked wizard who zaps out of a portal to hold Stuart accountable for giving his blood to Bernadette. As it turns out, this wizard is none other than Will Wheaton, who demands retribution from Stuart after he unleashed chaos into their world because apparently Bernadette drank Stuart's blood and revealed herself to be an 80-foot-tall giant demon smashing through the town and causing nothing but mayhem and bloodshed. But luckily, Bert is much more powerful than any wizard in town. So when Wheaton tries to kill Stuart with his magical powers, Bert protects his friend. Honestly, this magical duel was easily the best part of the episode, as Bert fights Will Wheaton with some intentional heavy metal finger moves used to throw fireballs or bring a shark to life. The magical combat ends with Bert practically vaporizing Will with his powers and saving his friends. Amidst all this, Denise also comes back to Stuart and exclaims how she wants to make it work with him irrespective of the uncertain mess they are stuck in. Sadly, before they could share a kiss, Bernadette's 80-foot-tall, crusty-ass green demonic form breaks through the ceiling of Stuart's store and demands the quartet to hand their quantum interference device to her. Luckily, before she could cause much harm to them, Bert quickly figures out a way to turn on the machine, which takes them back to the interdimensional wormhole and then into another universe. After leaving the demonic Bernadette high and dry, the next universe that Stuart ends up in comes as a shocker to us all, as we see him dressed in scrubs. The episode ends as he is sitting motionless in what seems to be a mental asylum, and after a nurse gives him his medicines and praises his drawing, we see that Stuart has been sketching the last moment he had with his friends, with Bert using his magic to switch on the device as Stuart, Denise, and a penguin form Barry wait for it to work. Well, over the course of 3 episodes, we have been through 3 different universes, and yet we have barely gotten any answers. Is it fair to assume that each episode's universe is random, or is there some overarching connective tissue that maybe we are all missing out on? I think it will all come to a full circle by the end of the season because, for starters, Stuart, Barry, and Bert have been leaving behind a mess through every universe they are traveling through. This has to have consequences, right? More importantly, where is the version of them in each universe they travel through? Are those versions getting zapped into some other dimension every time they use the quantum interference device to travel to a new world? I mean, that is a fair assessment, especially because the people of the world they are visiting in each episode seem to know who they are. I think the next episode will deepen how each installment of the season is connected to one another, as Stuart will be forced to find out what made him end up in a mental asylum in the first place before escaping it and then tracking down where the rest of the group is. I also think there will be a limit until which the quantum interference device will allow them to use it for traveling through the multiverse, but for now, that is really just a theory. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and I am honestly just waiting till the group is finally forced to face the consequences of the havoc they have been wreaking through the multiverse. Maybe that will finally push Stuart to save the universe. What do you guys think? Let us know about your thoughts and opinions right there in the comment box below. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.